All right.
All right. I am recording. Go ahead.
This is Christina Rasmussen, and this is your superior self.
Christina, this is a treat. I hardly, well, I shouldn't say I rarely get the opportunity to like read a book, reach out to the author, and then uh, uh, have them come on the show, because usually it's a lot of logistics and a lot of different things happening, scheduling and all that. But I get to have you on the show. As soon as I read your book, Where Did You Go? I was like, I have to have her on here immediately. So I want to say thank you for taking the time.
I love being here already, and I cannot wait for this conversation.
So we were talking a little bit earlier about our paths and how we were pulled into this vortex, as you called it.
Mhm.
I find myself being pulled more and more every day. It is just something that it just keeps amazing me. Um, I think that I think that people go through certain awakenings, right? I think it's all in due time. Um, but how did it happen for you?
Well, I'm going to start um, the story from 2003 when my very, very young husband was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer, and he was 31 at the time, and I was 30 years old. We had a 9-month-old baby and a 2.5-year-old. And Trey, everything turned upside down for
Mm.
me that day of the diagnosis. I couldn't even breathe. I thought I died that day.
I bet.
It took 3.5 years of him fighting for his life until he died. And from that day on, there was one question that I couldn't answer. And I was raised Greek Orthodox. I grew up in Greece. That's where the accent comes from. And was raised to believe in God, and I read every book there was with spirit guides and psychics, mediums. I read everything, and yet I found myself not believing or not connecting with the way they were describing this so-called afterlife, and the words they used and the means in which they got to their proof. So I went on a journey, and the journey started behind the scenes. I didn't tell anyone. Meaning, because I created this amazing model called the Life Reentry Model, and we are on clinical trials, thousands of people. I've helped thousands of people rewire their brain to re-enter life after something tragic happened. This is the main part of my work. This is what I'm known for. And Trey, this is what happens. So I'm learning about everything that has to do with physics and reality. What is reality made of? And I'm learning. I have chills. It doesn't matter how many times I have this conversation with anyone. I could be talking to someone in the street. I would feel that same the same experience. I started experiencing things, finding things, discovering things, and it was affecting the way I lived my life, my identity, who I was. And I felt like I was hiding a big part of me from my audience.
Hmm.
So I said to myself, Christina, you have to do this. You have to open the door, metaphorically speaking, to your audience and tell them about the temple world. So we did a pilot program, and I said to myself, if it doesn't work for them, then, and it just works for me or for a couple of other people that I've worked this with, then there's no book, there's nothing. It's fine. This is just for me. And of course, we had extraordinary experiences and moments. And then the proposal came, and the book went out into the publishing world, and Harper One grabbed it. And there it was. And then the world
And
found out
that's
about
how we
this.
got here today.
This is how we are here with this book. Yeah.
This is like so you talk about the metaphoric door, right? Like I've never I mean, every time I've experienced some type of meditation where I just recently got into it where I was able to I guess like a meditation where they guide you and they walk you downstairs and you relax and you go through a door and you're able to speak to a loved one on the other side and you do that too. But there's like another world that you go into before you go into the temple world, right? Like where you meet your higher self, and then your higher self goes with you to the temple world,
The super
uh,
watcher. Yeah.
super watcher.
Yeah.
And so I just want to say your book, I had a huge aha moment, and I remember speaking with my wife about this. So there was a meditation where I was having a conversation with my grandfather, and he presents to me something, a knife, like an old school knife, like wooden shaft and gold, brass or gold like ends. And it was very particular to him in his life because I remember him having these knives around. So he hands it to me in this meditation and basically is like, you need to go create your own path. You need to take this and you go, slay that forest and create your own path. And I'm like, that's cool. Okay, awesome. Yeah. First off, just to have a meditation like that and to be able to have a conversation, not like with my mouth, but through my mind with my grandfather
Mhm.
was phenomenal. And I come out of it, I'm like excited. Don't think anything after that. Just like, oh, that was a great experience. A couple weeks go by. We're down at the our beach house with the family, not my beach house, the in-laws beach house. And I'm walking down the stairs and there's this knife. And it looks exactly like the one that was in the meditation. And I'm like, whoa, that's weird. Like, where did that come from? I've never seen this knife before here ever. And it was my father-in-law's. And he's like, hey, you like my knife? I just, I've had that, or it was some. It might have been in the family. I don't know. But anyway, there's a knife on the stairwell. Don't think anything of it. I'm like, wow, that's weird. Um, I just thought that was cool. And then I tell my wife, hey, your dad has a cool knife that was in my meditation. Don't think anything of it. I pick up your book titled "Where Did You Go?" and it talks about your story and how you can go into this other, I guess, non-physical realm or plane and bring things back with you into the physical. And I'm like, holy crap, that's what I did. And it was like, aha, like, and I've been trying to, like, I've been doing this meditation and proving it to myself each time. It's insane. Like,
It's
and I
in,
was,
and Trey, can I just say, first of all, it's I call it the object exercise, and I put that step inside the journey to provide proof for the brain that this is for real. Number one. Number two, to for the journeyer, for you to understand that the invisible world and the visible, the physical and non-physical, are one and the same. They're connected. And it doesn't matter how many thousands of stories I've heard where the object appears out of the blue in exact the same way as what you find in there. It gives me chills, it gives me great joy, it makes the risk that I've taken all worthwhile for you to know that the experience was real and your communication with your grandfather was a real thing that happened.
yeah. But I mean, how did you get to that point where like, how did you find that out for yourself? Like, how did you get there to the temple? Like, how did you find that way?
So imagine having read everything there is to read about the observer effect, the holographic universe, and as you know, I wrote it on the holographic universe is my favorite book of all time. When people ask me what is my favorite book, that is the favorite book. You should have it. You should have multiple copies in your house. Michael Talbot wrote it in 1995 or something like that, and then he died the next year. He was extraordinary, and and that was the first book of that kind that I read after my husband died. A neighbor said to me, "You got to read this book." I've read it 3 times by now. It's very intense, and there's a lot of information in it. So I took everything I learned, every part of quantum mechanics, every part of science, everything I knew, and I created a step by step process for people to go deeper and deeper and deeper. Now, The door, for everyone who's listening and wants to experience the journey, a lot of people see the door. Your door will change. And a lot of people are also seeing openings that are different type. So it doesn't have to be a door. The opening is what the brain needs to be fooled with to know that it's living this experience and it's going to another.
Mm.
So, and I have to tell you a really amazing story about this. When I was using that door as the first step, I was, I, I felt that it was too simple. It was too simple. And then I went and read everything. And there's so many incredible historical ancient doors that are portals. And you can go online actually, and you can see the door experience is extraordinary. And then the night before the first pilot class was beginning, I was asleep in a dream. I was sleeping. All of a sudden, in the dream, the door of my bedroom opened, and I was being pulled out through the door with such a magnetic, energetic way inside the dream that woke me up. And I said, okay, the door it is.
That's my door.
It's the door. I'm not allowed to change it to make it something else. Now, another thing I want to say, people are when you close your eyes, you're actually Trey, you described seeing in the right way. When you close your eyes, when people close their eyes, automatically they think they need to see through their eyelids as your eyes are closed. That is not the way you see. You have to pull yourself with like inwards. You have to literally pull in and be
Mm,
and be in the seeing. It is a very different experience, and relax and completely let go and let
sure.
go. And a lot of people start the seeing experience with feeling.
Mm,
They start to feel things, the temperature changing before they even see an opening or a door, and then it becomes visual.
mm. Well, I have to walk down steps. So I get myself prepared. Like I'm walking down steps really quick. And then I go up to my door, which is red and it's like green, like decorating on it. And then I go through. And it's like an old time door where I can, like, it's like the old time skeleton keys. You go through, unlock it. I have to knock. And then my overseer or watcher, whatever you call it again, opens the door. And then I'm in there. And then it's a purple orb, like energy, which is me, obviously,
Mhm.
me.
Yes.
Um, but I go in there, and then all of a sudden, like I'm on the mount, like on a mountaintop, like in this next realm. Like I could see woods next to me, like snow. Like I'm in the mountains skiing, in like a lodge or something. And there's a fire. I imagine a fire, and I'm just sitting there, and we're hanging out, just talking, having intimate conversations, and I get so much insight. It is not even funny.
It's crazy.
It is not even funny.
It's crazy. And I don't know if you've gone to the Temple of the Universes yet.
I have. I sometimes it's hard for me. Sometimes I can like for something is like sometimes I can go up the stairwell to it, and then sometimes I can't. I don't know why, but but the three rooms is like your what past, future,
So
present, or something like that.
you have to collapse. So the Temple of the Universe is based and created through the observer effect and the knowledge of that, which is extraordinary. Anyone who's listening to this conversation, everything we say, they can Google all these terms, and there's so much there, so much. And Trey, I have to tell you, I'm really upset that the world is not educated through this knowledge that it exists. This is real. This is not something that I made up. The observer effect is real. So we have to, when we go there, we train ourselves and train our brain to collapse the fear-based reality or the status quo where life is okay. I don't need to change anything, and look at the version without creating it. So when we're in the temple world, what I always tell people, don't create, observe, be there, receive the knowledge, receive the insight. Let the universe, let the temple show you what you need to see.
Mm.
And I don't know if you've done the mirror exercise, which is after the temple of the
I haven't done the
universes.
mirror yet. No.
Brace yourself. You're going to write to me and tell me what you saw. Brace yourself, Trey.
I just like I still can't get over the fact that like in and then I had another one where I did your work and or I did your model and I was speaking to my great grandmother and she hands me a comb, like a old school comb.
Mm.
And so like I go upstairs and I'm like, I know this comb's here. I know it's somewhere. Like I don't know where it's at, but I found it in my son's room, like just putting laundry away, just the same comb. Like my son, we never use a comb ever for my son, but there's a comb in his room. Um, how does it? I mean, all right. So people are listening to us. I'm excited to talk to you. So we're all over the place, but it's fine.
No,
They have.
this is good because I think the for me writing this book is always about people. It's not just a book. People, you can buy books and put them on the shelf and read a few pages. The books that I write, they are like they're life change, that you do something with them.
Mm,
It's an instrument. It's a door. This book is a door. So
this
we have
book
to talk
is
about
a door
is a
to the
door
other
to
realm.
another
Yeah,
dimension. Yeah.
it is. I mean, like, so the thing is though, like it just made it like the aha moment was just so clear to me. And then when the more that I go there, the more insight that I get, the more problems that I can solve.
Hmm.
And like you said, it kind of makes me like, why aren't we not like, thank God for your book. Like, why are we not shouting this from the rooftops? Why are we not teaching this? Why are we not allowing others to become more aware? That is why I'm so happy that you're on the show, that we can spread this knowledge and help them understand that this is a real thing. And then people are kind of listening, like, how do I do that? Um, all right. So, can you explain like 101 level how to get into like the meditation state where you can
Yes.
do this?
Yes. So I have so much to tell you. So imagine I've helped thousands of people through the temple journey, and I've heard so many stories of, I mean, mothers who have seen their children, that they gave them an object and then there it is in front of them. Experiences like this change your life forever. You believe, because how can you not believe?
Mhm.
If like there was an amazing mother who lost her, I think 20 something year old daughter like a year ago, and she went into the temple and saw it. The daughter gave her a dragonfly, like literally a dragonfly. Next day, she went into her daughter's room, and there was a hair pin that she had that was a dragonfly right there. She had never ever seen it before.
So that's what I wanted to ask you. So like sometimes it doesn't come in the shape like or form. Like if you get if they give you a dragonfly like you said, and then you go and you come back into the physical, is not necessarily going to be a dragonfly, but like you said, something like a hair, like a brooch or something that is a
But it was a
dragonfly.
dragonfly
Yeah.
all right on it. The design was a dragonfly. It was, I mean, and there are some people who, like, there's been objects that I have seen that sometimes I don't find
Hmm.
in real life. But the main part here is that I haven't found yet. We've had readers a year, 2 years later, come in and say, it took 2 years, but here I am, or a location. You can see an actual location inside the temple that
Hmm.
you've never seen before. And then 2 years later, 1 year later, you're driving somewhere and there it is. There's the location. You can be told things, you can be shown things. And I don't like the word manifestation, Trey, I have to be honest with you, but people always say you took grief and you hid a manifestation tool inside this book. And I said,
Well,
because for
that's well.
it,
I don't mean. Sorry to cut you off.
no, it's okay.
I just like it goes into your personal story. This is a bit like you said before, like this was hard for you to put out, right? Like I mean,
Oh,
you're exposing yourself.
big time.
I mean to the
And I've gotten
max.
hate mail. I've had the Catholic reporter, the main Catholic newspaper, a journalist wrote a whole article about my book and myself. She got so many things wrong, by the way, but
Sure.
she, without me knowing, they go and see everything you do, and then they write, and they said that my book is dangerous. I was actually found this as a compliment. I
which
mean,
is
if the cat
why dangerous. It's helping people cope with grief. Like for
apparently,
your
eh,
story, right? Like you lost your husband, you
mhm.
found a way to communicate with him, right? And not just like an idea, not like a figment of your imagination. You got to communicate with your husband who had passed on the other side. You are able to lift that veil through meditation, through your practices, and have a special moment with someone that you lost. And only people that have lost those types of people can relate to that feeling of grief.
and
And you're,
and and I think my discoveries with experiencing that, the world that I found was about life, and it's almost like where we go when we die, it's also where life comes from. That was a massive discovery.
mm,
And because when I started writing and creating and doing all the like this, I feel, and I know it's going to sound weird to say this, I had no choice but to put this book out there. Like, because if I didn't, I don't know if the universe would ever forgive me. I am never going to be, I'm not going to be a psychic. I am never going to write a book like this again. This is, I'm, I am, my third book proposal is at the publishers right now. And it is continuation of the life reentry work. Like, this book was the right thing to do for the for people,
mm,
for grief, for everything that I am, and what I believe in. And ultimately, when you use the temple world, you actually um, access um, tools much faster. You're outside of time and space, Ray, when you're in there. There's no time.
mm,
It's infinity. You actually go in the past, in the present, in the future, all at the same time, and there are guides. I have so many guides around me there. Like, I actually go in there now to feel peace, to see what I need to see, to be told what I need to hear, and to experience. And whatever comes, if my dog comes, then that's what it is. If my husband comes, then if my grandparents or if others. So here's the fun, exciting thing that's happened when I started doing this. I started seeing people who have died that I don't know who they are.
mm.
And and I thought it was just me because I've created this work. But then all of our readers, all of the class participants, they're like, who are the people that we see there? And I'm like, it's almost like we open a portal, and the souls can feel that, they know.
Mm.
So everyone's coming over, and it's amazing to experience.
So do you run like group sessions too, where you do this in groups? What
Yeah.
kind? Oh man, do you ever have like collective experiences,
Yes.
like you feel like you kind of see the same people or anything like that when you're on the other side?
So because it is, imagine taking the last class was 100, 145, 47 people. I've taken bigger groups when I do the free journeys. I tell everyone who is reading the book, come, let's do a free journey together. It's such I have to prepare myself so much. So the class, the temple class, I only run once a year.
Oh wow, high demand. That's high. I mean,
It's so
getting that
much.
class.
And I did it. We did it in September. It's 6 weeks. People from all over the world. We journeyed together, and I have to control my dreams during that time because people who have passed come in my dreams, and I wake up. I can't. So I have to. I've learned now over all of this time to ground myself. This is it. Imagine we're opening a big portal for so many people and loved ones coming through,
Mm,
and it's almost like I have to use my energy and hold it. The first class, Dre, the first session of each class, not just me, everyone is exhausted physically.
I'm sure. I'm sure all that energy, right? Like, I mean, that
Yes.
collective energy
Yeah.
plus, I mean, you know, everything on the other side too. I mean, yeah, I would be physically drained too. And for those that are listening, I mean, I get excited about this, but I didn't see myself getting excited about this 3 years ago. Like, this was not in my wheelhouse. Like, this was not something on my radar at all. Was that like that for you too? Like, did you? I mean, what is your background? Where did you come from? Where, I mean, I know that it took the passing of your husband to get into this, research and into this life. But I mean, like, what were you doing before?
Funny enough, I have masters, a master's in counseling psychology, and my thesis on the stages of bereavement.
Okay.
I before before any of he died, I was, when destiny knocks on your door and you don't know why. So I was in my 20s, and I remember my professor saying, "Why do you want to study grief? Like, you're such a happy person." I'm like, I said to her, and this is, and I will never forget, and I share this story. I can never imagine losing someone I love. I love too
Oh,
much. Trey, right? How do I lose? How do people lose their people and survive it and get
mm,
through it and stay alive? So I said, I want to know how to help people. So I did my thesis on the stages of bereavement from Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, and then we moved to the U.S. From England, and um, things happened.
sure.
I lost my first daughter. I gave birth at 5 months. It took me 2 years to see her in the temple world.
2 years.
And the book was published by accident. I don't control the dates of when the book gets published, on her 20th birth and death anniversary.
Oh wow.
I mean,
Oh,
nothing can prepare you. That doesn't, it doesn't just happen.
sure. I don't believe in that. I don't believe in it. Like when things happen, like they happen for a reason. Like I don't believe, oh, it's just coincidence. Like I know, like after all the things I've seen with your book and with everything else that I've been researching, things just they happen for a reason.
And it's so, when I gave birth, and she had a heart condition. We knew she wouldn't survive the birth. We went. My first husband was, is Danish. He's from Denmark. That's where I met him, and that's where my last name comes from. People don't expect a Greek person. They expect Rasmussen, a blonde version of me, but so we gave birth, and then a couple of days later we went to Denmark for Christmas, and that was exactly 20 years ago, on 2018.
Wow. What was that? What was that like when you saw her?
This is an interesting story. I didn't expect. I wasn't looking. I went in like I normally do. I always say to people, just don't have expectations. Go in the journey. Let me see what's there for me today. Just go in freely, no expectations. And I see a 3-year-old girl. And I knew that was her, even though she died as a baby. And in that, communication in that place is very instant.
Hmm.
And I was told that she had different exit points. And if she waited to die later, it would have been too hard for me, and I wouldn't have been able to do this work. So
Oh,
she died as she was born, as small infant.
oh, man, have you seen her since then? Like, have you? No.
And I talked to my girls. I have two daughters. Two girls were born after her. And Trey, I had never named her all these years because it was too hard for me.
Hmm.
And we together, me and the girls, named her after I saw her in the temple, and we named her Sophia.
Oh, that's beautiful. I
20
love
years
that.
later, I
I
mean,
love
it's
that story.
it's a healing. It truly is a
Sophia.
healing experience.
Wow, that is amazing. Well, you have an amazing story in the book where oh man, I wanted to like my heart was hurting for you guys when your daughter actually did the practice herself and saw her father. Like, oh man, you talk about like a gut wrencher. Like I'm like tearing up, just thinking about it.
And
Because
she
it
wrote those 2 pages. She wrote everything in there word for word. The editor went in and just moved a comma, maybe, or that's
sure,
all her. And at the time that she wrote this, 15 years old, she was writing this. When I took my girls to the journey, we journeyed together. We hold hands, and we lie in the bed, and I take them. and it's, even if that's all I got from writing this book, that would have been enough,
Oh
Trey.
my god, that would. Oh my god, can you imagine having that that connection with your daughters, or having that experience with your daughters, and then having like reading her story afterwards was just so powerful. Like the words are just so perfect for that situation. Like it just I can't express um my gratitude for you sharing this book, because it truly is truly is a masterpiece in my opinion. It is something that everyone should read, I think, because everyone who's lost somebody knows that grief. Um, and it helps you reconnect with them, not on this plane, right? Like in the non-physical, in
And
your own. Yeah.
there's a, I don't know if you've seen already the Netflix documentary Surviving Death.
Yeah, buddy. I watched that like 5 times. Yeah.
Episode 4. I'm gonna show you something.
Yeah.
There's a couple that lost their son while he was on a scout trip
Yeah.
camp. Do you
Yeah.
remember
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
couple?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And the tree fell or some on him and he passed, and they couldn't experience anything. They didn't have any signs,
Yeah.
and all of a
They
sudden
didn't have
the
closure. They didn't have closure on that.
the father says one day out of the blue, I don't know how, I saw a door. I opened the door and he was on the other side. We had so many people write and say, how can we send him your book to because he kept saying in the documentary, he kept saying, um, I don't know why I saw a door. I'm like, I wanted to jump in the screen, and I'm like, forget the other episodes. Let's do a temple episode just for, because
Yes, you
the
need
book
to.
is so different to the. There is no other temple world. There is no. This is. I don't believe in writing things that people have already written. I mean, this had to be my journey, and I wish I could. In our groups, people like, I'm sure maybe the book will find him. You
Yeah.
know.
Well, you know what though? Because at first, like I didn't know, right? I didn't know what I was experiencing. I didn't know if it was right or wrong. I didn't know if I was going crazy, or if it's like I was projecting this experience onto
Mhm.
myself. And then when I read the book, I was like, you know, there you go. That's all I need. I'm a believer. And I think a lot of people say that. I know that I'm still questioning my journey, right? Like I
We
still
have
like,
to.
yeah, well, it's all subjective. Like God is subjective, right? Like God has his own connection with you. God has his own connection with me. The universe, expresses itself, you know, very in a way that we understand.
Yeah.
And it has to be that way. So that way we know that we're communicating with the universe. And I mean, this was just like one of those, it's like one of those points on the map. You think you're lost, and all of a sudden there's a landmark, and this was a landmark for me. And like, you're going in the right direction, Trey. Like, that knife where you're creating your own path. Like, here's this book. Christina has written this for you. Here's a mile marker. Keep going, buddy. Like, there's so much more out there. And I know you experience like so much more than you ever thought you would. And you're going to experience more and more as you progress down the line. Where do you want to go? Like, where do you want to go next? Like, what is your objective?
So my journey, and I feel um, my destiny, my whole world, everything that I am. I'm here to change the way we look at grief, the way we grieve, and the way we live after loss. And there's been so many extraordinary things that have taken place that are happening. We're building the Life Reentry Foundation, the Life Reentry Institute. And one day, by the end of my lifetime, Trey, every hospice, church, university, every Life Reentry, you know how you see AA everywhere,
Yeah.
groups?
Yeah.
There will be Life Reentry groups everywhere. And we are, and I'm not just saying it like fantasizing or anything like that. We are on our, I mean, we have an amazing board around the work. We received the Kessler Foundation is a foundation that went after two big grants to study life reentry, and they got both of them
Wow.
up, and it's really good
That's
money.
huge. That's huge.
It's huge.
Um,
So Trey, I want to say, and when when I knew I had to write this book, I struggled because of I'm my destiny is here to get life reentry to everyone. And this is why I hope when people are reading this book, or when the book finds them, because people always have the stories, the book found me. I don't know how, but the book found me. Know that it came from a pure heart. I knew I had no choice but to put it out there. This is not. It's almost like I had to sit and write it, and then go back to my work. And that's why I only run the temple class once a year. I just don't have the uh, I have the time. I shouldn't say that. I feel guilty when I say that. I have the capacity to do more. But I also believe, and people are begging me, literally begging me, why don't you do a recording? I have all the equipment here. I can do a recording where I guide people in the journey. And this is what I say to people: I want your consciousness guiding you, not my voice.
Mm.
It is Trey. So you read the book, everything's there. Everything you need is there. And then close your eyes. There's the sounds that we've created that you can download for free, or you can use any kind of sounds that make you feel connected to the universe, to the world beyond. I also, when before we had the coronavirus, I used to do the float, the sensory deprivation tank.
Hmm.
I mean, amazing.
Yeah,
Like,
I've always wanted to do one of those.
and go in the temple when you go there.
Yeah,
You will have the most extraordinary journeys because all of your senses are
they're gone,
everything.
right? Yeah. I mean, it's you're everything. Like you're floating. I've heard they're like magical. Like I just heard they're you need to do it. And I need to for sure. Um, when this book came out, when it finally got published and was out on the market, like what was that feeling like? I mean, were you
It was
nervous?
Christmas week. It
I mean,
was.
what were you nervous? I mean, but because like, did you discuss this with a lot of people? Did you think people were gonna think you were crazy? Did you think that
That's
people,
right.
yeah, like,
And Trey, as you know, this is not your typical book.
it's not your typical book. So like, what, like, were you like hiding around, like, cool, didn't want to go out because you're like, people are gonna think I'm nuts, like I'm not crazy, you know?
We're so aligned because I used to say this. People are gonna think I'm crazy, and um, my friends, my friends don't take my classes. Like, people don't know what I'm doing. I'm their friend. They don't know what I'm sitting doing at work. They see the blog, they see all this stuff out there, but the temple work was really behind the scenes. I mean, I wasn't advertising it before the book came out.
Sure.
And the book came out, and a lot of people got it, and I think they were shocked as to what it was. I was scared. I was petrified. I was almost in tears from, like, I mean, I was petrified. I was scared. And then the PR team. I mean, we had some. I was booked for so many interviews. I went to on Coast to Coast AM with George Nuri. Nori. I don't know if
Hmm.
you know. He's from Guy. And I remember that's when I said to myself, he's going to hang up on me, because because he has to. And we had sent him the book. He had read the book. This is very different to anything else. And I went through all of this, and even to this day, I mean, I get emails. I get people who don't experience anything. They're so mad at me.
Really?
Oh, and I'm upset about it because there's going to be a group of people who not everyone can experience this.
Hmm.
It's impossible. It's otherwise we would all see ghosts every day, or we'd all have proof every day. We wouldn't be questioning this if everyone could experience this.
Yeah. That's tough.
And it's tough because then they see the other people who are experiencing, and there's incredible stories in all this class. I mean, a lot of people are experiencing, and then there's this small group of people that either it'll take much longer for them if they don't give up, and there's some people who can't see, they can't experience it, they just can't.
We talk
Nothing I
about
can
seeing
do.
it, right? Like, is it the third eye? Is that what that is? Like when you
There's
can
something
imagine?
called, is it say there is a condition, actually. People can't even visualize anything. There's people who only see darkness.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't know this until I started. When you see the thousands of people, then you start seeing that more and more. Now, I remember there was one person in the first very pilot group that I can't see anything. We couldn't see anything. This person could not see a thing, and it's very frustrating and very upsetting because you have all the other people who are seeing and experiencing all these things that you experience that I'm experiencing, and it's very upsetting for them. And I can't change it. All I say to them is, if this doesn't work, there's other ways. There's other books. There's Go find your way that
Yeah.
works,
Yeah.
because the world beyond and the non-physical world is a real thing, Dre.
Oh yeah, trust me.
I am like, this is not, this is for real.
I mean, I've experienced it, and it was that like I said when I was questioning myself, it wasn't like had my eyes open and I can see. It was more I could I close my eyes and it's like this. I want to say I don't want to say imagination, but it was like imagination. It was like I could visualize this door, open it, go through, and then I have this. I'm not projecting my mind on anything. It's just there, and like I experience it, and then I go into the temple, like, and I do your exercises, and it again, it just happens, and it's not like I'm making this up. I'm not
No.
coming into the experience with any like pre-thought like ideas. It's all happening, and that's the hardest part, especially for me at the time because it was like, am I making this up? And it's like after a lot of the things that I was meditating on came into this reality, I was like, no, I'm not making this up at all. Like this is actually happening.
And that's why the part, the object exercise is so important, and because the brain needs proof, and the proof is there, is always there, even before you found that part in the book, right? This, it's there. I did the temple work once on stage with 350 people.
Hmm.
Now imagine you close the doors in the conference room, speakers were on, playing the music. All of a sudden, for the first time, this is a conference with many speakers. People are there all the day. Everything was working fine. It went like burning all of the speakers, and everyone was like,
Wow.
I was just starting to tell them, close your eyes. And then that happened.
Oh,
I remember afterwards, I was so exhausted. The most exhausted I've ever been from this.
sure.
And that's why I don't normally do them live like this, but it is, death is not real. It doesn't exist. It is a doorway. It is a pathway. It is a transition into a different kind of experience. And I want to say, I remember when my first husband was dying, he was in the hospital, and it was the end. We had reached the end. He held my hand one day, probably 2 days before he died, and he said, Christina, I don't know how to tell you this or how to say it, but I know there's people here in the room, like people who are alive, but there's also people who are not alive.
Hmm.
He said, I see them both. And he was in and out a lot. Was towards the very end.
Hmm.
And I will never forget that. And there's many stories like this. At the end, we start to see the world with our eyes open. The invisible world becomes visible because we are on our way to
Sure.
this new existence.
Oh man, that's powerful. Um, and a
Trey,
lot of
can I
yeah, go
say
ahead.
one thing?
Yeah.
And this just happened. It's not. I maybe you've seen it because I posted over the weekend. I spoke at a. Now imagine 104 souls went on that SpaceX rocket on Sunday
A
for a
hundred.
space burial,
Wow.
and I spoke at the launch of all these
Yeah.
souls going to space. I think in the future we will look at death in a very different way.
Oh yeah. I hope so. I hope it's not so. I hope it's not so like closed off like it is in the West. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like I read books about the East, the tradition in India. It's very open. It's open to the public. They prepare themselves for death, for that transition. Where we're now, we have hospice, which is great, but we're still, closed caskets. We don't want our kids to see it. We don't, we want to hide everything from death when death is just, it's not the end. It's just a transition from for us into another world, another reality, another consciousness, right? Like that's what it is. Like you you're this source of energy. Energy cannot be created nor destroyed. You
I was
just
just about to
transition.
say that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you transition. Christina, oh my, yeah. And then also you have like one of my favorite guys on here. You got Raymond Moody Jr., um, PhD, author of Life After Life, endorsing your book. Huge fan of him. All the shout out to him and all the people at UVA doing amazing work.
His book Life After Life was the last book my husband was reading before he died. He
Mm,
was halfway through, and I wrote that to him, and he didn't believe he didn't believe there was anything. He believed there was nothing on the other side. He was not didn't believe in anything, and I begged him and said, towards the last few weeks, you have got to read this book, and it was that book. So for me, when he said yes, he was going to read the book to potentially write an endorsement, that was a full circle moment for me.
that's got to feel so amazing.
Yeah.
So amazing. Christina, this has been nothing short of fantastic. How can people connect with you? How can they buy your book and how can they find out more about you?
For this book, go on Amazon or anywhere that books are sold. Just put where did you go. And for everything that I do, ChristinaRasmussen.com, LifeReentry.com. I have a podcast called DearLifePodcast.com, SecondFirst.com, which was the very first brand, and that's where my weekly blog is. I write a letter. I've been writing a letter every week, every Friday for 10 years.
That's a lot.
Yeah. So you'll find me. Just put my name on
You'll find
the
me.
search.
Open up that door and you'll
Yeah.
find Christina.
Go through the door.
Go
Yeah.
through the door. Lastly, Christina, what do you want your legacy to be?
I want people to know that there's time to grieve and there's time to live, and both have equal importance. Grief doesn't last forever, and time doesn't heal all wounds. It is life that does that. And by the end of my life, I hope that every person will have hope and will have the tools to re enter their life after devastating and non devastating loss. Loss is very invisible as well. We all grieve many things that are never validated or acknowledged. And my mission is to also make sure that everyone feels seen, validated, and supported through whatever grief and whatever loss they're experiencing.
Mm, beautifully said. Christina, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much for having me, Dre.